It was 2022, and at the time I was living in Oakland, California. One weekend I drove up the coast to visit my parents in Eureka. The drive along Highway 101 is actually beautiful during the day, with the ocean on one side and tall forests on the other. But at night, the road feels completely different. It becomes quiet, empty, and strangely unsettling. Long stretches pass with no other cars, no streetlights, and sometimes no cell signal. That night, I left my parents' house around 8 p.m. to start the long drive back home. Looking back now, I wish I had just stayed the night. For the first couple hours, everything was normal. The road slowly narrowed into a two-lane highway as I headed south. Around the small town of Trinidad, something changed. A thick fog started rolling in from the ocean. Within just a few minutes, the clear night turned into a gray wall. My visibility dropped so quickly that I could barely see 20 feet in front of the car. I slowed down to about 35 miles per hour and gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. Fog like that does something strange to your brain. You lose all sense of distance and direction. Every mile feels the same. Every shadow looks like it might be something else. And when you're alone on a dark road, your imagination begins filling in the empty space around you. About 30 minutes later, I noticed something ahead on the side of the road. At first, it looked like a shadow standing in the fog. But as I got closer, the shape slowly turned into a person. A man was standing on the shoulder of the highway, facing the road. He wasn't waving for help. He wasn't walking. He was just standing there, completely still. I slowed down even more as I passed him, worried he might step into the road. But the man didn't move. He didn't even turn his head to watch my car go by. For a moment, I thought maybe his car had broken down somewhere nearby, but I hadn't seen any vehicles pulled over along the road. About 10 minutes later, something happened that made my stomach drop. I saw him again. The exact same man. Same dark clothes, same height, same strange way of standing. But this time, he was on the opposite side of the road. As my car passed him, the man suddenly turned his head and locked eyes with me. The movement was fast and unnatural. I immediately looked back at the road and pressed the gas slightly harder. Something about the way he looked at me sent a cold feeling through my chest. Just a few minutes later, my headlights revealed another person standing directly in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes and stopped. The figure was wearing a hood, hiding their face in shadow. I flashed my high beams, hoping the person would move. Nothing happened. Then I looked in my rearview mirror, and my heart nearly stopped. Someone else was walking slowly toward my car from behind. I swerved around the figure in front of me and drove away as fast as I safely could. But just as I passed him, something slammed violently into the back of my car. The entire vehicle shook. When I checked my mirrors, there was nothing behind me. No car, no person, just empty fog. This happened during my spring break earlier this year. I had gone back to my hometown for the week, hoping to relax and take a break from college. But after a couple of days, I realized there was almost nothing to do there anymore. Most of my friends were still away at school, and the town felt unusually quiet. The streets were empty most of the day, and even the small parks I used to visit growing up felt strangely deserted. To pass the time and stay active, I decided to start working out every afternoon. Running always helped clear my mind, and there was an old 3-mile loop I used to run back when I was in high school. The path started in my neighborhood, then cut through a wooded trail before looping back onto the main road near my house. I had probably run that route dozens of times before, so I knew it like the back of my hand. Or at least, I thought I did. The moment I stepped outside that day, I noticed something unusual. A thick fog had settled over the entire town. It was the kind of fog that makes everything look faded and distant. Houses at the end of the street were barely visible, and the trees in the distance looked like dark shadows disappearing into gray mist. It felt a little strange, but not dangerous. I figured the run would actually be kind of peaceful with the quiet and the fog around me. The first part of the run felt completely normal.
I jogged down the road and entered the wooded trail just like I had many times before. The fog between the trees made the forest look different though. Branches faded into the mist above me, and the path ahead disappeared after only a short distance. Still, I kept running, focusing on my pace and listening to the sound of my footsteps against the dirt trail. After a while, I glanced down at my watch. It showed 2.5 miles. That's when I noticed something strange. By that point in the loop, I should have already been close to leaving the woods and heading back toward the street. But instead, I was still deep in the forest, surrounded by the same fog and trees in every direction. I kept running for another minute or two, thinking maybe I had just lost track of where I was on the trail. But soon the watch passed 3 miles, then 3.1. That was impossible. The entire loop had always been 3 miles total, yet somehow I was still running through the woods with no sign of the trail ending. That's when I finally decided to turn around. Something didn't feel right anymore. The fog seemed thicker, and the woods felt quieter than before. I slowed down, caught my breath for a moment, and then began running back the way I came. A few minutes after turning around, I heard something behind me. At first it was faint, almost like a low humming sound drifting through the fog. It wasn't the noise of an animal or another person running. It was more like a strange droning vibration that slowly rose and fell in volume. The longer I ran, the more I realized something disturbing. The sound behind me was matching my pace. No matter how fast or slow I ran, it stayed the exact same distance away. Every time I looked back over my shoulder, all I could see was the gray fog swallowing the trail behind me. Finally, I burst out of the woods and onto the street at the end of the trail. I stopped and bent over, trying to catch my breath. Then I slowly turned back toward the forest path. Standing there, deep in the fog between the trees, was a tall, dark shape. It had to be at least 7 feet tall. It wasn't chasing me anymore. It was just standing there, slowly swaying in the mist, as if it had been watching me the entire time. About 6 years ago, my friend Edwin and I decided to go kayaking in Willapa Bay on the Washington coast. We had both been kayaking for years and loved exploring quiet coastal areas. Willapa Bay is known for its calm waters, wide open views, and peaceful atmosphere. Most of the time, it feels like the kind of place where nothing unusual ever happens. That morning, however, the bay looked completely different. A heavy fog had settled across the entire water, covering the shoreline and stretching far out into the distance. From where we launched, we could barely see more than a short distance ahead of us. Still, we assumed the fog would clear up once the sun rose higher, so we pushed our kayaks into the water and began paddling out. For the first hour, everything felt peaceful. The water was smooth, and the quiet fog actually made the place feel calm and relaxing. The only sounds were the gentle splashes of our paddles dipping into the water and the distant cries of seabirds somewhere far above the mist. Then suddenly, we heard something else. At first, it was faint, but it quickly became clear what it was. The sound of wooden oars rowing through water somewhere nearby. The sound came in a slow, steady rhythm. Splash, pause, splash, pause. It sounded like someone rowing a small boat not far from us. The strange part was that we couldn't see anything through the fog. Eventually, the fog thinned just enough for a brief moment. Through the gray mist, I caught a glimpse of a small wooden rowboat drifting nearby. Someone was sitting inside it, slowly rowing. Before I could get a better look, the fog rolled back in and swallowed the boat again. Within seconds, it was completely gone from view, like it had never been there at all. The strange thing was that no matter which direction we paddled, the rowing sound stayed beside us. It never got closer, and it never moved farther away either. Eventually, we both agreed it would be better to head toward the shoreline and get out of the fog. As we paddled closer to land, the rowing sound suddenly stopped. When we pulled our kayaks onto the beach, we noticed something strange in the sand. A trail of wet, barefoot footprints leading out of the water and across the beach. Curious, we followed them, and a short distance away we found a small wooden rowboat resting on the sand, the exact same one we had seen drifting in the fog.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe my channel. See you on next videos. Till then, goodbye.